So I did it on a live stream, which is a terrible decision. And it was just all in the moment. And I was kind of in my feelings. And I said the wrong things. And it was devastating for me and for others. And I know I hurt people. I got hurt, and, videos were made about me. It was an experience, but I wouldn't change it because I learned so much. Like, I'm not the person that I was then. And so I wouldn't take it back. I met some of my best friends from that situation who are still with me today, helping me with my channel, just by my side through it all.
So we've got a special treat for you, Psych for Sore Mind viewers. I have Kimber as an interviewee. Hello to you. How are you doing?
Good. I'm so glad I'm here. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So if you're a true crime fan, you've probably heard of Kimber. She's got 270,000 subscribers, which is quite a feat in such a crowded and competitive space. So I thought I'd have her on to get some of her experiences and insights, and also advice as a fledgling and struggling YouTuber myself. So Kimber, my first question's got to be: you do all these cases, you deep dive, you do so much more research than most channels out there. Of all the cases you've covered, which has been the one that's affected you emotionally the most?
There's one thing I wanted to point out before I tell you, and that is, I didn't realize this until the other day, but one of the comments I got on a YouTube video, was someone was a little bit uncomfortable with me getting emotional in my videos.
Yeah.
And I didn't notice that I was getting really emotional in my videos or anything. I know that I edit them and I see my video, but I guess I didn't realize it made people uncomfortable to see other people, express emotion like I sometimes do, because I get choked up. And if you haven't spoken about some of these experiences that another person has had where they've died, and you haven't relayed a story like that, I don't know if you can understand what it feels like to revisit it again and again and again. So to answer your question, they all affect me. I'm really good at separating myself from it, and I don't do any meditation or anything like that, but I listen to music. It also helps me because I do have like a really big fear of death, and it would seem counterintuitive because you're like, if you're scared of death, why would you want to talk about this?
Yeah.
But for some reason, it helps me. I don't know how. Maybe you do. Maybe you can answer that question later. But
And I'll take a stab at it. But when you say it affects you, are you talking about while you're doing the case, or are you talking about even days or weeks afterwards? Like, do you find yourself, dreaming about these cases, or just
no, it's usually within the time frame that I'm doing it. However, because I do them back to back to back to back, it just flows right into the next one. So I haven't, it's like having a relationship and then you had a breakup and you're still trying to kind of get over it. You haven't really gotten over it yet. And then there's like another wound,
Okay. And if there's not one case that stands out that's emotionally kind of scarred you, is there a certain type of victim? So for example, a certain age or gender or circumstance that gets you more or shocks you more?
Well, the one I just covered recently, Chandler Halderson, or Halderson, however you'd like to pronounce it. I've heard it both ways in court and otherwise, but that one really got to me. And that's why I did such a deep dive. It's why I did multiple episodes, because I was captivated. I felt like I was part of that family at some point, which again, I know that we say these things and people probably think as a viewer, yeah, right, whatever. But it's different. It's like I'm looking into their lives. I'm listening to their best friends talk about them. And when you meet a stranger, what do you usually do? You find out all about their life. And I don't have to be with them to feel like I knew them, to feel like I was sitting in a room. Sometimes I'm doing tours of their home. Yeah. So I feel like I am there and that I do know them. And that one really hurt me as a parent. To know that, and I'm like almost getting choked up, and it's not a fake thing. Somebody said like, you're a really bad actor, and I was like, trust me, if I wanted to be an actor and if I thought I was good, I would be an actor, and I know I'm not. Yeah. So it's not that
I believe you. I can see how you would get emotionally invested, because you dive in much deeper than most other people. Like even talking about that Chandler case, you've done 3 episodes and they've been hours long each as well. They're not, they're not short, snappy sort of episodes. They're really deep and personal. So if that takes you that long, if that's the length of the footage, then I can only imagine the number of hours of research that must have gone behind it.
Yeah, and it's repetitive because then I have to kind of go back over my notes, and when I'm writing it, I have to think about it, and then I have to edit it, and it's just as I hear it again and again, I think of different things and new things and worse things and how are they feeling? What did they say? It just gets worse. But
Yeah.
that one as a mom, knowing that your child, like knowing that the last moments of your life were taken, you were spending with your child who ends up taking your life and you gave them life. And like as a mom, I don't know, other viewers might not be, and I guess it doesn't mean you have to be to feel it, but it's just this disgusting feeling I get in my chest and like in my stomach where I love my daughter so much. I couldn't imagine, number one, I'll never get to see her again because I'm dying. But that, and that's why I get choked up about it. It's like, but that she killed me, then no, I hope in that instance they weren't looking at him. Like I hope he did it in a way where their back was facing him or something, because at least that's what I want to imagine.
Yeah. No, fair enough. So I have to ask, what kind of drives you? What motivates you to do what you do? Because obviously it can be quite hurtful just emotionally going through it. So what do you get from it?
I've been asked this question before, and I think there's a lot of assumptions about why YouTubers do what they do, whether it's true crime or any other genre. And I've heard everything. I've heard like you're exploiting these people's deaths for money. You are just trying to, make money and get views. So you're doing a popular topic. I don't necessarily disagree. I think that a lot of YouTubers obviously use this as a business. It is a business. We know that. But I know you know this, and a lot of other creators do too. If you don't like what you're doing, you cannot do this job. If I did not genuinely have a love for what I'm researching, and I don't mean a love for knowing that someone died, lost their lives, sad, tragic scenarios, but I mean a love for research and creating content. I've been doing YouTube since 2010. This is something I love doing. I've tried to stop so many times, but when it comes to true crime in and of itself, that curiosity started when I was about 5. And that's because my dad was in prison from the time I was
Oh, wow.
2 to the time I was almost 7. So when I used to hear that my dad was a criminal or that he had done bad things and he was in prison, I always wanted to understand why, like, who is he? So my curiosity started a long time ago. However, recently I just sat down and right before 2020, and I really wasn't happy with my channel. And I started to write down characteristics and traits that I either had, was good at, what I've studied. And I just put everything together. And there were like 3 or 4 things I could have gone into. And out of all of them, I was already doing this kind of research because I would watch true crime with my fiance. And then I would say, well, what happened to that guy? Or like, what happened to their dog? Or what happened to this person? And so I figured if I'm already going to be doing the research, why not talk about it? And I started a podcast before I started my actual true crime on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So you've got this like burning curiosity. You want to go. You're not just satisfied with what you've seen in the documentary. You want to know a little bit more. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So do you mind talking through the process of the channel? You said that you had a podcast first. How did you, especially the earlier days, because obviously everyone struggles. How did you cope with it all, and how did you get through it all?
Well, I started my channel in 2010, but I didn't start my true crime until last year, which was 2020. In 2020, I started at the tail end around like December, but then I quit. And then I took a long time off. I would say like 4 months or so, which is a long time. And I came back after really understanding why I wanted to do this, whether I really wanted to do this. But back in 2010, when I first started YouTube, I was just inspired by creators that did beauty and lifestyle and makeup. I was younger, and you evolve. So back then I just wanted to have fun, and I never really took it that seriously. And I've gone through a lot over the years being on this platform, but I keep coming back. So either I like torture or, like I said, I'm just really passionate about it.
And was it quite hard to switch topics? Because obviously they're very, very different, health and beauty and true crime. So did your fans stick with you, or did you have to restart again and get a whole new fleet of fans?
Um, there's a lot of misconceptions with changing your genre on YouTube. YouTube, at the YouTube space, I was doing a class in 2020, right before the pandemic, and the class is called Rebrand Yourself. So I have like this whole booklet. YouTube wants you to rebrand yourself. YouTube wants you to evolve. They want you to explore and to change because the atmosphere and the climate on YouTube changes all the time. Our world changes. We change. We get older, we grow out of things. And that's exactly what happened to me. And I've changed my topics many times. It's sort of like a sport. You don't know if you're going to be good at it unless you try it. And you can't just try it for one video. You have to kind of give it a good go.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's that hard, but you probably know this. YouTubers and people who do this job, they definitely have something. There's a lot of us, and each one of us just have either grit or they can persevere, or maybe you're just like me and I just like turn it off. But it's been really difficult. However, no, you don't keep your audience. And I've learned that. It's just, I've gone up and down, and people have been like, oh, I hate that you're not doing phone cases and pop sockets anymore. And I'm like, well, I'm almost 40. Do you want me to stay to, when I was 30? Or like, even then I was a little too old for doing it, but I liked it. And then at some point I just wanted to go in a different direction, but it is difficult.
Yeah.
It's not impossible though.
Okay. It's inspiring words. I asked you before about if any particular case had affected you emotionally. What about flipping it over a little bit? Is there ever been a situation where you've sympathised with the perpetrator? Obviously, I'm not saying for a second that you're justifying what they've done, but you can see how it happened, or you could see how an ordinary person could have been driven to what they did. Any sort of circumstances like that?
My gut reaction was no. And I knew I was going to have like difficulty when you were starting to tell me this, because what I will say is, because I did grow up with a father that I know wasn't a good person. And I was also introduced to a lot of his friends, and I knew those people were not good people. However, they were people that I learned to love and that I adore. And I mean, over the course of my life, I've gotten closer to all those people, including my father. And so there is a part of me, because I know his story. He came from a really good family. All the things you hear where it confuses you. How did this person do that? And how can they shut off, their feelings, so to speak, and just become this monster, this person who doesn't care? There's a lot of reasons why, but when I listen to cases where there's drugs involved, where there's mental health issues involved, where there's neglect, it's really hard for me to just say that they're an evil person. I think we can trace it all the way back to the way they were raised, and maybe the attention or lack thereof from their parents. So in those cases, and they're not usually ones that I do, I usually pick ones where I'm pretty disgusted in what happened. But I can see why I've watched other cases and been like, as bad as this is, I feel really bad that they just didn't come from a really good background, and it's sad.
Yeah. So, as you know, I rehabilitate mentally disordered offenders professionally, and I think a very uncomfortable truth is that not all, but the vast majority of people who commit serious offences do come from horrific backgrounds, from poverty, neglect, abuse, and I think the problem is, especially with YouTube trolls, is they think that you can either, it's very black and white thinking, either somebody's good or somebody's evil, and I guess what I'm trying to say is that even within that framework of thinking, people that are evil, there's usually a reason that they're evil, and at one point they were victims themselves, and people don't really want to think that that angle. They just want to think this person's bad and should be punished. But I think of the cases that I sympathize most with the perpetrator. It's exactly what you said. It's mental health issues. So when you have somebody who's completely psychotic, for example,
Right.
and just out of control of their actions. So one that I talk about quite frequently on this channel, and I did a video on, is Andrea Yates, and it just keeps coming back to me because she just said, what she did, for people that don't know, she killed her 5 children in 2001 in Houston. It's just so inexplicable. She's not an antisocial, angry, evil person that, had a
Right.
history of abusing kids. It's not like that at all. She was a normal mother, but kept flipping into these periods of psychosis, didn't get the support that she wanted, and ended up doing something so horrifically drastic.
Do you ever think that people, or I should say, I believe sometimes when viewers might be listening to a case, or I watch a lot of trials, they might just assume, well, that person's faking it. And I'm watching a trial right now, and as much as I want to believe that, and I do believe that sometimes that's used as an excuse and there's an insanity defense and all that stuff, I do see the pain in a person. Even if, like, if they're stooping to the level, let's say, of lying about having an insanity issue, I feel like there's also something wrong with you, but
Yeah,
I I sometimes feel like if I even step over that line and say anything about how I feel bad about the perpetrator, I'm looked at as victim blaming.
yeah,
And I am in school right now and I am studying death investigation, and victimology is a really big part of a case. And you do need to look at like what the victim did and how they got in the situation and how it relates to what happened to them if they knew the perpetrator in most cases.
yeah,
But if it's like a random act, that's a little bit different. But then again, you could talk about, well, where were they? What were they doing? Were they into something they shouldn't be? And right when you say that, a
yeah,
lot of times people are like, oh, you're victim blaming. I'm so ashamed. You should be ashamed of yourself. But that's not how I've been taught in law school
yeah.
and in the classes I'm in now. We do a full write up on the victim and like what their lifestyle was. But with that being said, yeah, it's hard to even sympathize at all. That's what my podcast used to be, actually. And I'm such a more compassionate person now than I was when I did my podcast, because it was called Critique a Killer. And essentially, it was supposed to be talking about like what he could have done better. Like, you're an idiot, you shouldn't have left that fiber behind. And it was supposed to be more lighthearted,
Yeah.
which now I tend to be offended by when I see it. And that's because I've researched so many of these cases and put myself in the victim's shoes that I can no longer kind of make a light of it because
Yeah.
I realize there's a real person there.
Okay. There's lots of things you've said that I want to unpick. Just to go back to the beginning, I think the thing with the insanity plea, obviously, I appreciate it'd be different in your country and in your state, but I give evidence for the insanity plea in the UK, and I have to say that the threshold is really high. So you can't. I wouldn't be as cocky as to say it can't be faked, but I think it'd be extremely difficult
Mm-hmm.
because it's not just enough to be mentally ill or even to have symptoms. It's all about your actual thought process at the time, like what your intentions were at the time, and the onus is on the defense to prove it. So it can't just be somebody saying, "Oh, I was hearing voices and they told me to kill somebody." That's not enough. You
Right.
have to actually prove it. So it has to be, old psychiatric reports, CCTV footage. There has to be like objective evidence that somebody was having these symptoms. And similarly, faking mental illness is so. This is something that I've done videos on as well. Is relatively easy to do badly, but it's hard to do well. So anyone can say they're hearing voices, anyone can pretend they're agitated or paranoid, but we're kind of onto that. So there's so many different ways, from getting objective information. So you ask the prison guards or you ask the hospital nurses who are with that person 24/7 to assess them over days or weeks, sometimes even months.
Right.
So it's really
Because I don't know
hard,
if
I
it's
think.
consistent, I guess.
Exactly, absolutely. And you cross-reference that with the evidence that I was talking about. But that's a whole different conversation. So in terms of something else I wanted to ask you that you talked about was negative comments, trolling.
Mm-hmm.
I was about to say I'd be surprised if you get many negative comments because the material that you do is very sensitive and it's not provocative. But having said that, it is the internet, so it's not the voice of reason. So what's your experience of trolling, of negative comments?
Oh, I've had so many experiences online, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's 100% trolling because I think that we're entitled to have an opinion. I watch videos too. I'm a viewer, and there have been so many times where I'm not being a troll. I just genuinely, I don't comment, but I genuinely just go like, this is a terrible video or something, and I just turn it off. I think that some people can't, they don't have the ability for whatever reason not to say something. Like maybe they're like me, I can't let a text message go. Like if I know that somebody texted me, it'll eat at me. Like I'll be like, oh, I have to respond now. And that might be the same or similar feeling that they have where it's like, I don't like this video. There's something about it I hate. And instead of just leaving, which you should just leave, like if you don't like the food at a restaurant, you don't sit there and complain about it usually. Like you can tell them you don't like it, but you don't continuously tell them, you just leave. I feel like they just have to say something. And, you know, after doing this for so long, I don't, I'm not angry and I don't hate them. I just know that it was a spur of the moment decision. Like who makes good rational, like rash decisions, not rational, but like rash decisions? Who? No one. I know I don't. So I just kind of think like in the moment they were upset about something and could have been my face, could have been my voice. People don't like my voice sometimes. People love my voice and hate it at the same time. So I don't really give it that much thought. I don't get that many comments anymore, but that's also because, I mean, bad comments, but that's also because, like you said, I try to remove myself from my content because the whole purpose is for me to share someone else's story. Once in a while, I'll add a little thing about myself in there, but for the most part, I've learned that's not what you came here for. This isn't a beauty and lifestyle channel. It's literally, I'm telling people stories. But I also have actual terms and conditions or guidelines for my comment section, which other channels don't have. It's something that, because of a situation I went through, YouTube granted me the ability to report channels who don't abide by my guidelines. So I have my own guidelines. And if you choose to violate me and like violate my guidelines, fine. I could either report your channel, which I never do. I haven't done it once. I can hide you or I can block you. And that's a choice I make, but for the most part, I don't sit there and delete things. I like to respond to a lot of those comments and be like, okay, I get it. You didn't like that. Let's talk about it.
Okay. So it sounds like you've never had like a scary or terrifying experience. You never felt like you never been threatened, or you've never felt any credible kind of threats or insults from the comments.
Not exactly credible threats. Before I went into true crime, I was interested in a different topic. And I actually got interested in that topic from being interested in true crime. So my two cases that I've been obsessed with just understanding are Chris Watts and Jodi Arias. And I don't want to do a video on either one of those cases. And there's just a lot of reasons why, but I didn't really intend to do videos on those cases. They're just cases that have always been in the back of my head. I think about them all the time. I was in law school when the Jodi Arias Travis Alexander case was unfolding. So we discussed that a lot in criminal law and just amongst my peers. We were just blown away that she decapitated her freaking boyfriend. You know, like why wouldn't that be a subject of conversation in law school? But anyway, when I was telling you that I was trying to come up with ideas for my channel and making a switch right before the pandemic, I got really interested in diving deep into like Mormonism because Jodi Arias, you know, she got into Mormonism and I was reading the Book of Mormon. I'm not Mormon. I'm interested in these things. And through that, I kind of got into a couple other, I didn't know, but like controversial type of topics. And I did one video. This won't be very long. I'm going to make it so Cliff Notes version right now, but I did one video explaining what this thing was because a part of me was going to do like the Jodi Arias case and the Chris Watts case. And so I wanted to define this one thing, and I don't want to go into the whole story, but I was planning on doing one video just to reference when I was doing the true crime videos, because I wanted to say, oh, if you don't know what this thing is, go watch the one video instead of having to repeat the definition every single time because it's pretty confusing. And so just to get it out of the way, I was like, I'll make this one video. Well, that one video, for me, it was like not a viral video, but it got a lot of views.
Yeah.
And it got me a lot of positive attention. And being a YouTuber, we know how this stuff works. You say, what did I do right? Like, I wasn't expecting this video to be the video. I was expecting it to be a video.
Yeah.
And it derailed me, which that's my own fault. I'm not the best keeping on track, which, you know, that's just a thing for my personal life, but I'm kind of like spur of the moment. And I just jumped on it and started doing more videos because people really liked them. And that's what we do. We know what the audience wants and we think there's something we can provide. And I had a really good perspective. And about 50 videos in, 50 videos in,
Yeah.
and gaining a lot of subscribers and having, I guess, what people would deem as success, I realized that in my heart, I wasn't the right person. And that it's like a relationship. It's like deciding you got to break up with someone. And I did not do it right. So I didn't do it right. And I got a lot of criticism. I wouldn't say that there was any threats.
Sorry,
not
criticism about that, like the content of that video, or about
No,
how
I
you're
did
doing things in
50
general?
videos. I was like in this niche. Like it was a niche of itself, of its own. And I was looked up to. I mean, people saw me maybe as a role model, which they probably never should have because I'm a human being and I don't want to fulfill that role. But it was me leaving the niche that caused a problem. It was like the way I stepped out of it. So I did it on a live stream, which is a terrible decision. And it was just all in the moment. And I was kind of in my feelings. And I said the wrong things. And it was devastating for me and for others. And I know I hurt people. I got hurt. And, you know, videos were made about me. It was an experience, but I wouldn't change it because I learned so much. Like I'm not the person that I was then. And
Yeah.
so I wouldn't take it back. I met some of my best friends from that situation who are still with me today, helping me with my channel, just by my side through it all. So, but yes, I've felt very scared, but not threatened like on my life or anything, just about my reputation.
Yeah. Just hearing you speak about these kind of things, I think people don't understand how much their comments can affect people, and also how much of an emotional journey trying to be a YouTuber is. Well, you're a YouTuber, I'm a wannabe, but how much
No, you're a
the whole
YouTuber.
thing
If
is.
you're on here and you're doing it, you're a YouTuber.
I suppose it depends how you define it. So that leads me quite nicely onto my next question. What kind of personality factors do you think a YouTuber needs? And separately, what personality factors do you think you have that either make you a good YouTuber or can hinder you in relation to your niche as well?
It depends on what you're doing, you know, like what topics you're doing and how you want to come at YouTube. This was my last chance. Like I had been doing YouTube a long time and I sat down with Scott, my fiance, and after everything had happened to me, like I just explained, 50 videos in, and I'm deciding to change again. And I think I'm going to quit YouTube. And I did quit YouTube. And it was just a lot for my family. It was really hard on my family and my friends and me. So this was the last time that I was going to try YouTube. And I think the qualities you have to have, you've got to be self-sufficient. Like you have to be able to not only just be your own boss, but be your cheerleader, be your, you know, I don't know, like compass and guide. It's not like having a job where your boss tells you what to do and you check it off a list. It's like, wait, what do I do? Okay, wow, that just changed. I know that for me personally, I'm really, really, really obsessed with numbers. I'm really, really obsessed with data. And I don't know where that came from in my life, but I'm just obsessed. I like picking things apart and understanding them. And I think that's a really necessary quality if you're trying to actually grow your channel. And there's many reasons why people want to. It's not just monetarily. There's a lot of things that come from having a voice and having a platform and having people who appreciate you. So I have a lot of goals on why, but I think you have to have grit, you have to have thick skin, you have to be a self-starter and really patient. And I think the most important thing is you have to embrace change because this is a roller coaster. It is never the same. You know, people can love you one minute, hate you the next. one of your videos does well, the other one bombs. It's like the worst, but it's like the best because you never know what you're going to get.
Okay, well, that's very, very helpful. So hopefully anybody watching this who's aspiring to be as successful as you can take something from that. In terms of this is kind of a connected question, but is there anything that in retrospect that you'd have done differently? And I know you've already told us about how, you know, you've changed kind of topics and you took a bit of time out, but I'm talking about in terms of making the videos, like, I don't know, the content or the way you've recorded, anything that you've learnt over the years.
Yes, but I wanted to go back for 1 second because I just
Sure.
thought of something.
Sure.
So, did you happen, because I didn't know if you said what are some bad qualities? I don't know if you said like what are your good qualities with being a YouTuber and like what are the bad qualities?
Yeah. I said, is there anything that you think hinders you from your?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I was thinking of, and then I forgot, which is one of my bad qualities. And you know this because you'll be like, "Oh yeah, we're meeting," and I'm like, "Wait, what?" I don't have a bad memory. I actually have a pretty good memory because I don't even write things down. They're just like all in my head. It's not a good trait. But I think that things that are not good, I'm not the most organized person. A lot of creatives are not. I'm very messy, very messy. Like I know where everything is, but it drives everyone else around me crazy. I take on way too much. I make a lot of promises I end up not being able to keep. And it's not because I'm flaky or don't want to. It just, I have a hard time saying no. I always want to say yes, always want to be there for somebody. And that's really bad. And then I think the most important thing to know is that I'm a human. I have my own mental health issues that I deal with on a regular basis. And for me personally, it's almost like a double-edged sword because I have cyclothymia. So for me, there are so many things about it that make me an amazing student, make me an amazing creator. But on the flip side, what people don't see are the things that make this job really hard for me. So for me, I'm kind of on the bipolar 2 spectrum where I've never been diagnosed with it, but I wanted to be because I wanted to have more of like a guideline to follow.
Yeah.
But my doctor would always tell me like, if you were, it's like not otherwise specified, like it's NOS because we don't have I don't have ups and downs. I have like a weird higher baseline and then I don't dip low. So I stay between like my norm and a little bit up, but not manic. So it's a weird shift in the way that my moods work. So I used to be so against medication, and I got diagnosed with cyclothymia in law school due to my insomnia. So I got on meds when I met my fiance because that was the like most important relationship I've had since my daughter. You know, so those are the most important people in my life, and I was not able to have the best relationships with them.
Okay. And what medication are you on, if you don't mind me asking?
So I take so it's Lamictal, but it's generic for what is it?
Lamotrigine?
Yeah, lamotrigine, lamotrigine, yeah.
So for viewers that don't know, and you correct me if your experience of this is different, cyclothymia is a bit like a less intense version of bipolar. So people have highs and lows, but not quite as high as what would be considered full-blown mania and not quite as low as what would be considered depression. So how does that fit in with your creativity and your work? Like, so for example, are you able to work more effectively or less effectively when you're feeling a bit up? And if so, do you have to kind of change your timetable around that?
So okay, so it's like I'm trying to think at the same time, which is hard. I don't have like the down part. You know how most people, or if like I've never been depressed, any of those things, which is hard because then, you know, I live with someone who does have that. Like they do have the moods where it's more, oh, I'm not feeling well, like I'm sad. Cyclothymia and even bipolar, they have their own type of depression, which I don't know why I'm telling you this, but they have their own type of depression. And so for me, it's not that I'm down, it's just I'll be irritable and it'll be for no reason. Like there is no explanation. Like I could wake up and I'm in a really good mood and then everything is bothering me and it's not a bothersome thing that is normal because I have normal bothersome things and then I have like my cyclothymia bothersome things and I can tell the difference and it's like an itch. Like it's like an annoying thing I can't get off of me is what it feels like. So the reason it's hard for me, I guess, is that I won't feel like doing things. So I won't
And
feel like
is that like a lack of energy and motivation, kind of not feeling like doing things, or is that you're so in the moment, like irritable at the moment that you just kind of want to have a distance from activities?
it's yeah, it's mostly that I'm also introverted and I will, if I'm not feeling good at all, like let's say I know that I'm having a day and it's not often. It doesn't happen all the time, especially because I am on meds and I do a lot of things too. I recognize feelings and I'm like, okay, I got to take a break or a walk or the things that help me, like listening to music is one of my biggest therapies besides real therapy. But um, I get I get the feeling that I'm never going to be good enough. Like that's the anxiety. And so I don't even want to create something because I just feel like I'm going to fall from grace. I feel like I'm like on this pedestal and like I'm going to do something wrong and it's not even because of what happened. I've always had this. So that's this nagging feeling inside me and it puts a creative block and I just don't want to do anything. And I'll just sit here. I will scroll TikTok. I'll waste all of my time. And then you know what happens? I have to work like a maniac. Like I have to stay up and not sleep. And then I just it's bad. It goes into a terrible cycle.
Yeah, because that's that's possibly going to trigger you deteriorating, right, if you're not sleeping.
It does. That's
Okay.
exactly what happens.
And you're obviously very comfortable talking about your mental health. Do you think it's easier now to talk about mental health problems than it was, say, 10, 15 years ago? Do you have a do you have a problem with talking about it to anybody, or are you just very comfortable?
I don't have a problem talking about it unless someone is going to misunderstand and not be open to understanding what it is and they have watched movies or they say things like, oh, you're so bipolar. Not to me, but I've heard people say that phrase just because someone doesn't know if they want McDonald's or like Burger King. And I'm like, that is not appropriate. It's just not appropriate. And that's because I do have a degree in psychology. So for me, it's offensive when people use like a diagnosis out of context and they do
Yeah.
it to hurt someone. And so I have no problem talking about mental health because all of us are dealing with something. Everybody's hurting in one way or another. And I think it opens up dialogue and it helps people to know that they're not alone, that we're not perfect. We're human beings. We're always going to make mistakes. We're not going to feel good. But I was not okay with having anything wrong with me, with talking about anything or taking meds 10 years ago. Because that was when I was in law school. And when I had insomnia, I wanted to know why. So I went to the therapist at school. They had one for us. And she, put me through all these tests. And at the end, she said, you have cyclothymia. And I said, no, I don't. Like, no. And I didn't want it on my record. I told her to pretty much like go F herself. I was like, there's nothing wrong with me. It's you. And yeah, it was just really, I did not like it. But you can't hide from yourself. And eventually you're going to notice if you have WebMD, like if you have the internet, you're going to type something in. But to end this part of the conversation, I'm completely comfortable that came out of desperation because I got so stressed from not being on medication. And it is, what do they call it? Like degenerative. Like it can get worse if you're
Yeah.
not on meds. There is like no real cure for it. It's like you have to maintain this normalcy by medication and also like behavioral therapy and stuff. But for me, I went deaf in one of my ears, not obviously permanently, but from the stress and not sleeping and having these like episodes of emotional ups and downs. I couldn't hear out of my ear one day. Like I thought I was going insane. And I was in law school and I had to study. So it
Yeah.
was then I realized I have to be open to living my best life.
Yeah. Well, good on you for actually doing something about it, because a lot of people will just be in absolute denial and they won't ever address the problem. So just moving tact and coming towards the end of the interview, Kimber, I just wanted to know a little bit about your life outside of YouTubing. What do you do for fun? You mentioned your daughter and fiance. What are your kind of
Uh-huh.
interests and hobbies?
So you skipped the other question because
What was the other question?
Part of my problem is like I'm so detailed that like I'm like, wait, he asked me a question between it, and then I went backwards, and
Um,
then
oh, that was it. It was whether you change anything or whether you do anything differently in your
oh,
knowledge.
okay, briefly, I promise, briefly. Yes. So if anyone wants to start a YouTube channel, and I love talking to people about starting a YouTube channel, improving it, knowing what they want to do, I love doing that, and that's because I love to analyze things. But I would not start unless I knew what I wanted to do. So it's really easy to look at other people's channels and be like, oh my God, I want to be like this person. I want to be like that person because it looks like they're having so much fun. First of all, none of that is real. This is a set. It's not fun. There is a satisfaction that you get from it, but it's not like I walk in here and I'm like, yay. It's not. It's different. It's a different love. It's a different happiness. You get happy when it's done. You don't get happy in the moment. Like you're not like, oh yeah. And I have friends that do every kind of content, and I can tell you that's true around across the board. But I would not start a channel or get into a niche like I did before, made mistakes, without analyzing like who I am and evaluating my best qualities, like my background, my education, what I'm an expert in, or what my talents are. Because you're going to be the best version of yourself on camera, on your channel, in your life, if you show up as you and not as, you know, a channel you admire or a person you admire, because you cannot fake that for long and you will end up not liking it. And then when you don't like it, people could already like you. And then you have to just like backtrack. So
Yeah.
I would give a lot of thought to, and I would record like 12 videos that you never post and make your friends watch them and rewatch them and see if you're cringy. Like if you are, just improve on those things or find a different niche or a different topic, because you never know. You might be so good at something. I didn't know I was going to be good at this. I'm going to be turning 40. It's like this is the first time I've ever felt like I have a talent. And I mean that. Like I really do not have a talent. I don't have anything. I'm like, oh, I'm so good at this. And so that just proves never stop searching for something you might be good at.
Yeah. And I think the thing is that YouTube is just flooded with so much content that you have to find not necessarily either a topic that's not been done or an angle of that topic that's not been done, or like a way, whether that's, you know, humor or one of your own personality traits, or, you know, ramping up the technicality, the intelligence. You have to find a way of doing it that it hasn't been done, because why would people go to your channel when there's already, you know, established versions of what you're trying to do for most
So I'm
things.
sitting here, like, so I'm sitting here thinking, well, like, well, then what's my like? What's I don't know. I agree with you, but I also like don't agree because I'm sitting here thinking, well, there's nothing new under the sun. Like everything's been done before, and oh, that's one of the things I love to say before we end is like, I would hear people say, I have another friend of mine that does true crime, and she was one of my inspirations. I would watch her videos all the time, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like a girl that could be my sister, even the way we look and everything. But it's like, I was like, this girl could be my sister, and she's close to my age, and she's a mom, and I just liked her so much. Her name is Sherry Lindale,
Yeah.
and I saw a comment on her channel that got me so upset that I responded. And I usually don't do that because I have the verified check and like people will go to my channel and then I'll get hatred and I just keep quiet. But they said something like, what gives you the right? Because she was a new true crime creator at the time. This was like a year ago. And they said, what gives you the right to think that you can just come into the true crime genre and like, who are you? You're not even good. And they were just going off on her. And she did such a great video that I felt that person has no idea how much time it takes and how much effort and bravery and just confidence to do what she was doing. And for them to just crap on her like that, it really pissed me off as a creator, as a woman. Like I just, ugh. And so my question to people when they say, oh, look at you, now you're trying to do this or you're trying to do that, I say, when am I supposed to start? How far back do you want me to go? You want me to go to when I was a newborn? Like, when am I allowed to love something enough to want to pursue it? Like, my daughter started gymnastics last year. Is someone going to make fun of her? They're like, oh, you can't be a gymnast. No, look at you strutting into the gym. You can find a new passion tomorrow. And I encourage each one of those people that think those things, you're limiting yourself.
Yeah.
You can find something you love tomorrow and just do it. There's no like, I don't know, like starting point. It could be today.
Okay. Okay. Once again, inspirational words from Kimber. So yeah, my final question will go back to what I asked before. Can you tell us a little bit about what do you do for fun? What's your life outside of
You're
YouTubing?
looking at it. Just kidding. So, um, I love animals. That's one of my biggest goals and why I'm doing YouTube, which sounds so silly. You're like, wait, what? I want to have a farm. It's like just one of my dreams, one of my goals. And I want to have like a no-kill farm paradise for animals, like elderly animals. We're going to do it. It's just, I obviously have to be in a place in my life where I can support my family, I can support myself. And then these are endeavors that I want to come out of everything I'm doing now. So I love animals. Like my rats are eating right now because it's late. So you can hear them like chewing and I can't stop them because they're eating. But I love animals. I have a ton of animals. That was another choice. I was like, should I be like an animal channel? And I'm like, no, one of my really good friends does that. And no, but I love animals. So in my spare time, I am like cleaning cages and loving on my animals and going to see other animals and loving on everybody else's animals, taking videos of my dogs. And then other than that, I like to play video games. I have like a gaming computer on my desk. I don't do it like on Twitch or anything, but I love gaming. I love consuming a lot of like, in the old days when you used to read like gossip magazines, I forget what they would call them, like not dirty magazines, but they would say it's sort of like your guilty pleasure. My guilty pleasure is just TikTok and Instagram reels. Like I'll just sit there and I look at the clock. I'm like, oh my God, 4 a.m. What am I doing? I feel like a 10-year-old, but I love spending time with my daughter. I love theater. I do a lot of activities with her. So, I mean, I'm basic. I don't have any crazy, I'm not like jumping off cliffs or like going skydiving. I'm not a risk taker. Yeah, I like to go on walks, listen to music.
Okay. That's really nice to get a bit of an insight of you outside of YouTube. I have to show you something because it might excite you as much as it excites me. I'm a little bit older than you, but got
You
a full
are?
yeah,
No,
yeah.
you're not.
No, I am. I'm 43.
You're
But
not.
I've
I
got
don't believe
a
that for a minute.
no, I really. I've
Oh
got
my
a
gosh.
full size
Is that
Street Fighter
Street
2.
Fighter?
Yeah, Street Fighter 2. It's got 1,800 games on it.
Oh, that is so cool. Where did you get that? Is it like where did you get it?
I got it off the internet. So a friend of mine suggested it as a kind of a slight joke for me to get for my kids. And as soon
So
as I had the
cool.
idea, yeah. If
It
you ever
is
come to
so
London,
cool.
you have to come and check it out.
Yeah, I actually do want to visit. I've like hardly ever been anywhere, which sounds so pathetic, but I I like have not been out of the country much, but I've been to other states. It's just not out of the country. But that's so awesome. One of my friends, he like he not remasters, but he like takes old Game Boys and things like that and he redoes them all new and it's so cool. So yes, I love video games and that's amazing.
Kimber, it's been an absolute pleasure to talking to you today. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Of course.
And thank you so much for being so supportive of me and my channel and helping
Of
me out.
course, you guys have to subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment below. What else? Share this video.
And if you're subscribed to me and not to Kimber, which I think is very unlikely, then obviously go and check out her channel as well.
That's sweet.